Good morning, I am Pete, also known as Risk for Rewards, or over on Twitter known as @Risk for Rewards. Currently got around, over 20,500 followers over on Twitter and got about 1,700 here subscribers on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, if you click the link below, it just means that when my videos go live, you'll get them straight away, whether it's to your phone or to wherever in the house. Just means when you log on YouTube, or if you don't, you'll still get a notification. Just means you'll get all of the content straight away. Normally that might not be quite so important, but this week I'll be doing videos every single day, hopefully the best part of 2 days in advance. Like this is Wednesday's video, and it just means if you like one of the horses that I've mentioned, you can take the price straight away and you're going to get a better price than other people. Most of my content would normally be on Twitter, but because Ascot comes so thick and fast and the declarations are only 48 hours in advance, I have to do videos rather than write because there is not enough time in the day. Hence why I'm doing this video now on the middle of the start of day one before the racing starts, ready for Wednesday. And then obviously I'll either do another one tonight for Thursday's racing or I'll do it first thing tomorrow, just to try and get it so you're always ahead, and those 10-to-1 shots that then end up 6-to-1 shots, hopefully you're ahead of the game. Again, this is a very not rough, but this is more these could be my selections. I've backed some of these horses already, rather than the fact that some races I've got completely nailed down. That's just because we're waiting for draw bias. We're waiting for how the ground's going to come in. And the reason I waited on this video is because I want to see how much rain they've got. Sounds like they've got between 9 and 10 mil this morning, but it doesn't look like it's going to change it much it's good to firm currently, so it's probably going to be on around a perfect good, I'd say. A bit like Cheltenham, where the first day is a little bit softer and then the rest will probably speed up throughout the week. So it's not a problem. Anyway, right, so let's try and keep this short and sweet, because obviously people have got things to do. Maybe watching this in your office. Right then, so Royal Ascot day 2. So no idea how we got on day 1, but we go again anyway. Day 2, the Queen Mary Stakes, 5 furlongs meant for the fillies. Really young horses. Fillies are quite unpredictable, and horses come on from leaps and bounds. Just like in the past, in my experiences of Royal Ascot, I used to love these races. I used to get too heavily involved, have too bigger bets, just because you have to separate the difference between excitement and the difference between having the good form and all of the works. And you get so excited when you see a superstar horse like a Lady Aurelia, and you're like, oh, you've got to have your biggest bet of the meeting on it. And they're 2-year-olds at the end of the day, so they all improve at different speeds. So therefore, I'm not going to say, oh, this one, and have loads, but I am going to be backing 2. I have backed one. One was Midnight Affair. I've made no secret of that. That's been all over Twitter. Took that at 16-to-1. Richard Fahey horse. Richard Fahey's made. He's always had good 2-year-olds, and he's had plenty of success here at Royal Ascot. This horse made its debut behind Soprano at Newmarket, and Soprano was very, very, very well touted by George Bowie, and it was no secret. I backed that horse on debut, and it was a short enough price. It didn't really go through the gears, but still won very easily. But Midnight Affair was very luckless in behind, and I thought if that horse had been given a fair bite of the apple and a fair run, I was concerned that Midnight Affair may have got the better of Soprano. Obviously, Midnight Affair comes here on a 3rd run now. If Midnight Affair was to go well in this race, even place or win, just have a look further down the week, because this is why I don't want to put all the content up straight away, is because obviously if she was to bolt up in this race, Soprano runs on Friday in the Albany, and if Soprano's still a fair price, that price is going to go. But if you're before everyone else, then you're laughing. So it's just always looking further down the line. But Midnight Affair, anyway, I go back to that. And then she came to the Hillary Needler in a 5 furlong. It was very difficult at Beverley. It was a quirky track, outside draw, but Todd Hope was very calm and composed. Just gave her a nice, smooth introductory ride. Many people will be like, oh, that wasn't that impressive, only winning just over a length. But it just looked like a stepping stone to this. I don't think she got out of probably 2nd or 3rd gear. And you'll see a much more full-on performance here. Is she good enough to beat another 27 horses? Who knows? But at the end of the day, she was 16-to-1. She's now 10-to-1. You're still getting double figures. A lot of these horses, you may want to wait until the day, because obviously you'll get the best odds guaranteed. And also there may be draw biases. Like we may watch the Coventry today, and you might be watching this after Tuesday's racing. And the Coventry, they could have all the horses that come in the first 3 could be drawn, say 23, 4 and 5. And then the horses in 1, 2 and 3 might be way down, but they were well fancied. By then you'll know, okay, we want the high horses. So this horse is drawn 19, so I don't think draw will be an issue anyway. The other selection that I do like that we've got even less form on, having only had one run, is Carl Burke's Beautiful Diamond. And I could go through the form's not that great. The form, it's hard for you to say the form's that good or not that good because her debut was only on the 7th of June. All I know is you read in between the lines. Carl Burke was very impressed with her afterwards. You listen to a lot of what the yard have been saying. She's been a little bit tricky to train at home. They've not really been able to take up. They use the word the handbrake. So they've brought her to the racetrack, but she was so uncomplicated, and she went through like a true professional. She went away, she won very well, and she just peeled away from the field like she'd been doing it for a long time. That gave her an RPR of 94, which is higher than the second favourite, the joint favourite, Born to Rock. But at the end of the day, RPRs aren't that important at this sort of time. It was just the fact that she is there or thereabouts. The reason why I really like Beautiful Diamond is because Carl Burke over the last few years has become phenomenal with fillies and mares, 2 and 3 year olds. And obviously you come in here and she's a filly and a 2 year old, and obviously he could have had a bunch at home, but this is the one that they rely on. And it wasn't like, oh, where will she go? Where straight after the race, it was she's going here. Currently priced at 5-1, and they'll be my two bets for this race. Beautiful Diamond on the win purpose and Midnight Affair each way. Born to Rock, I respect for Jane Chapel Hyam, very shrewd trainer. Obviously, the likes of Saffron Beach, she knows how to train a filly and a mare. Very, very good debut, good on the clock, good sectionals. A lot of people will be backing this horse. The problem for me is, one, she's short enough price. Again, she's down at 4-1, 5-1, same as Beautiful Diamond. And two, the form in behind is awful. I mean, that you can't judge when you win by 4.5 lengths. You can't really judge the form that harshly. But when you go through, I think it's the second, third, and fourth have come something like 8th, 9th, and 10th in their next time out. Even when I think 2 of them were sent off favourite, so that is not form to hang your hat on at all. But at the same time, as I said, all of these horses improve at different times. There'll be horses in here who have finished behind another horse, and they'll improve 10 lengths next time out. It just depends how the trainer trains them at home. But in summary, Beautiful Diamond and Midnight Affair, they're both drawn 17 and 19. So unless there's a really low draw bias, there shouldn't be too much of an issue because they're almost in the middle, that they should be able to go whichever way the pack goes. So yep, they're my two selections for the Queen Mary. On to the 305, the Kensington Palace Stakes. So I'm not going to dive too heavy into this race because I haven't looked hard enough. The one that I did have on my radar was Yarrawan there from Joseph O'Brien. He just looked a very sneaky Irish handicapper. What I mean by that is the fact that you looked at his 2 races on the all-weather, and one race on at Leopardstown and then the other race on the all-weather. On the all-weather, it looked like they tried to do it as hard as possible to get him up on the line, beating Pierre Lapin. At the end of the day, that didn't really make much odds because obviously those weren't handicaps themselves. But over the accumulation of these 3 runs, you're gaining a handicap mark for races like this. And as soon as they won at Dundalk, beating Pierre Lapin, Joseph O'Brien said that this is the target, so the Kensington Palace Fillies handicap. That to me stands out. That is a long-term plan because that was back in December. So they brought the horse back, ran at Naas over 7 furlongs, which is obviously a furlong shorter than here. I don't want to say they didn't try, but they didn't try really. Like as in it was almost like you look for the trouble in running. They don't really. Basically, you're looking for a handicap mark that's not going to get you too high and you've got enough confidence. But the thing I really like about Yarrawan there is the fact that at Royal Ascot, you need to be able to travel. And in big handicaps, you need to be able to travel. When you're looking at the 30-runner field and there's one horse still on the bridle, you want it to be that horse. If they don't find enough off the bridle, then fair enough. But that is a long Ascot straight. And if your horse is the one that's still on the bridle, then that's what you want. And don't get me wrong. Like obviously, I could go for all of these, and some of these will be a lot. They might be a better horse. They might be stronger travellers and stuff. But this horse just stood out as one that it's not to be. It should be on the short list if that makes sense. So I will be backing Yarrawan there each way, around the 8-1, 9-1 at the moment. And I'll be looking for another. Drawn in the middle on 10, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. And gets a booking of James McDonald. For anyone who doesn't know James McDonald, Australian, I think he's actually a New Zealand jockey, but he plies his trade over in Australia. Phenomenal jockey. Doesn't matter where he is. He's came over to Ascot. He had winners here last year for George Bowie. You put him on a horse and he'll be absolutely fine. So he's a brilliant jockey booking. On to the Duke of Cambridge. So obviously I did mention about the Discord. I'm not going to go too much into, but the reason I mention it is the fact that the Discord price for Jumbly was 5-1. Jumbly's now 2-1. And when the prices came round, Jumbly was 9-4 and Laurel was 3-1. I thought Jumbly was too short. Now the market's reopened and Jumbly's still around I think it's between 2-1. Well, I can see 9-4, so between 9-4 and 5-2. but there's no Laurel. So for me, I think that's actually a fair price, even though obviously it's the 5-1. That's anti-post. So if she doesn't run, then you'd lose your money. But for me, this is there's two horses I like in this race, and the first is Jumbly. One is a bit of a standout is the fact that she was sold for, I think it was at 1.25 million in the off season. So between last summer and this summer, like for a horse that has good stakes form last year, like had won, I think it was a Group 3. Yeah, she won a Group 3, and and she is a very good horse and very capable and very able, but she didn't look like a superstar. You wouldn't think she's going to be going for 1.25 million. But she went to Joseph O'Brien, and Joseph O'Brien, just like obviously the horse I mentioned in the last race, has made it very, very clear. This is only second start for Joseph O'Brien that this was the target, the be all and end all. Royal Ascot, Duke of Cambridge, let's go. And obviously comes here, has got Ascot form, having beaten Ostula at Ascot. Comes here and straight away ran a career best for Joseph O'Brien on return. But Joseph O'Brien also said that horse was not wound up or ready to go at all, which you would believe, because much like his father, he's plying his trade by bringing them along slowly. But the horse also, the biggest thing for me that day was there's a huge pace bias. And I know I've mentioned it already with Luxembourg and, well, not Luxembourg, that comes next, but Paddington yesterday. I could be saying this and Paddington's just bolted up in the St James's Palace. But I'm just trying to be against those horses that got a gimme at the Curragh in the fact that they were on the front of a pace bias. Basically, if you were hug the rail, if you were out in front, and if you were prominent, it was very easy, and the others would find it very difficult to make ground. Obviously, no brainer. The master Ryan Moore just did this for the whole weekend and thought, okay, if you want to come take this spot, then come get it. But basically, shoulders up, I'm having this. And Ryan Moore just dominated that weekend, and as did Ian O'Brien. Not saying that obviously Just Beautiful wouldn't finish in front of Jumbly again. That may well be the case, but my point is the fact that Jumbly came from the back and from the outside that day and didn't have that bias, whereas the winner Just Beautiful was always out front out in the out in the open. Jumbly did very well to make up the ground, and again, much like Joseph O'Brien's other runner, wasn't given a hard time. And for a trainer who, you have to come to terms with the fact that trainers of this sort of stature, like as in the Joseph O'Briens and Ian O'Briens, they might be running a Group 3 that could be the be all and end all to a certain trainer, but the thought of having a Royal Ascot Group 2 winner is a lot bigger. And the fact that this horse has been campaigned for this, bought for this, swapped owners for this, and brought to Joseph O'Brien, this horse will be roaring and ready to go. So at the same time, does that mean she wins? Not necessarily, but I do think the 9452 is fair. Prosperous Voyage is not a horse I've ever really warmed to. Sat there around 11-4 now. Frankie Dettori in the saddle will have its chance. I just thought she made such hard work of it at Epsom. I think she has a 1 minute she's phenomenal, like when she beat Innsbruck that day. But then other than that, I think she's very average. She's bordering around anywhere from 102 to 107 in most of her run races, of which Joseph O'Brien, when I'd say would be undercooked, ran to a 111 last time out. However, it's not to say that obviously Prosperous Voyage, maybe she'll come on for her runs because she's had 2 runs, but off the front of the market, I'm very keen on Jumbly over Prosperous Voyage. And then the other selection is my standard go-to, which I'm not going to make the same mistake this week, is the just back Aidan O'Brien and John Gosden fillies and mares. And that is Grand Dame. And this is a horse I really like. And I think if she'd had a run and ran to, like, say, similar to what Joseph O'Brien's filly Jumbly did, she'd be more like the 3 or 4 to 1. I think the reason she was priced up anti-post, she was 14 to 1, then chopped into about 9 to 1. About 12 to 1. I think the reason she was such a big price anti-post is because they also had Laurel in here. Laurel was jocked up with Frankie Dettori, and I think they thought maybe Grand Dame wouldn't run. Grand Dame does come here and has been known, well, not known as, but was considered quite an unlucky horse at times in her training. When you look back to some of her runs, especially in, what was it at Newmarket? What's the race called? The race is called the Sun Chariot. I mean, it was Jamie Spencer, so you'd expect nothing less. The horse was held up, but she's a strong traveller. She wants to be held up. The issue was she was held up and given almost an impossible task. And I mean, they've put it politely, when not clear, but like he just literally sat there like, oh, I can't get through. Oh, I still can't get through. It's like, well, you need to do something. But at the end of the day, the reason I go to the Sun Chariot is because on that day, she finished a couple of lengths ahead of Prosperous Voyage off level weights, and she finished just in behind Laurel. Laurel's not here, and she finished ahead of Prosperous Voyage. Prosperous Voyage in that time, so in the since achieving that, so that was a 110 RPR back then at Newmarket on the 1st of October. Since then, Prosperous Voyage has come out around 2 races below that level. yet Prosperous Voyage is a third of the price. Prosperous Voyage is 5 to 2, 11 to 4. Grand Dame is 9 to 1 best price at the moment. So yeah, okay, you're coming here, doesn't have a run, comes here fresh, and obviously only had one season in running last year, so you can't say that horse goes well fresh. But she did win on debut. She gets the service of Jamie Spencer, and everyone's like, oh no, here we go again. But Jamie Spencer's very, very good on the straight track, and he's very, very good at Royal Ascot, and he's very, very good on hold-up horses. So if Jamie Spencer can't find the space in somewhere like Royal Ascot, then something's going wrong. I don't want to say he can't, that he won't not find the space, because sometimes he does find that. But at the same time, I've got no negatives with that jockey booking. And even on RPRs, like she's ran a 107, 110, 110. And again, going back to the front end of the market, like obviously it was a career best for Jumbly, 111 last time out. But apart from that, all of her numbers are below Grand Dames. And the same with Prosperous Voyage. She's got one standout bit of form last year when beating Innsbruck. But apart from that, she's been nowhere near that. She's been 107's been her top. So if you just ran it on ratings, technically Grand Dame, even though rated below on RPRs, like Grand Dame should be in front of Prosperous Voyage. So all I'm saying, at a bigger price, I just think she's a play massively as well. In a race like this, where you've got your 8 runners, so you've actually got 9 runners. I've backed Jumbly, obviously anti-post at 5 to 1, but I've also gone Grand Dame. Grand Dame, you can get 9 to 1. Go each way on that as well, because obviously if she does come on for the run, or you get a Spencer issue or whatever, then those would be the two for me. One at a really big price that I do like, a 33 to 1 shot, is Random Harvest. Just looked to stand out at Newmarket behind Via Sestina, like of a horse just having a run out. Ran a career best behind Prosperous Voyage when Prosperous Voyage made every heavy weather of it to get past. And I just thought maybe at 33 to 1, maybe she could go close or whatever. If you sat there with a free bet and you want something at a bigger price, then maybe that's the one. Right, Prince of Wales Stakes. I know this is the race of the day, but I'm also going to keep it short. I was all over Desert Crown. It was quite simply because, one, I wanted to give him his, obviously everyone knows how much I loved him from his Derby and his big payout for me on the Derby, but I just thought his comeback was perfectly adequate. I knew there'd be more to come. He apparently took a hard blow and the whole works. And it was a combination of two things. One is I thought he's the young and up and comer, so you should give him the opportunity. And two was the fact I looked through this field and I just thought I could pick holes in all of them, and that's what's just led me to obviously he's a non-runner now. But now I'm finding it difficult to find a bet because I spent so long studying to make sure I was backing the right horse at 6 to 1 anti-post in Desert Crown that I picked such holes in these that now I'm finding it hard to who's got less holes. So I'll still give you my view because obviously that's important, and I might end up picking a selection tomorrow. I just think at the prices they're awful. The bookmakers don't have a clue, to put it quite simply. I thought the overpriced one was My Prospero at 8 to 1, and then every man and his dog said the exact same thing. So now we've got 4 horses priced below 4 to 1, which says to me the bookmakers do not know where or what to do with these horses. And also we've had the rain come today, so now they've had 10 meals. Yeah, it's only 10 meals, but depending on what they do tonight, they could be stay on the softer side of good, which would bring the likes of a Bay Bridge into like a fair level. Me personally, I think I'll start with Bay Bridge. Why not? I think Bay Bridge wants it with a lot more cut. I think the perfect race for Bay Bridge is something like the Arc. Ran on Champions. His career best came on Champions Day when it was very soft ground, 125 RPR. Away from soft ground, he's still a top level performer, like a 122 sort of level, but he's coming in against other top level performers. So if he was coming in against the likes of a Mostadav and stuff like that, then fair enough, he'll take this. But he's coming in against Luxembourg, who beat him last time out. Adiar is a good course, My Prospero. So for me, Bay Bridge, he's overlooked because of the fact that, and also I had but he was one of three. So I had Baid, Caribus and Bay Bridge. Those three I thought would not get beaten at Royal Ascot last year. And Bay Bridge got stung by a perfect ride from the front from State of Rest. And he then got done exactly the same at the Curragh by Luxembourg in such a similar scenario, in the fact that Ryan Moore stole a lead, took the front of the thing. Bay Bridge, although it was only probably about he made it, Ryan Moore snuck a little bit, and maybe had 2 lengths at one stage ahead of Bay Bridge, and Bay Bridge made the ground again, but he just could not get past him, and Luxembourg was just so hardy out in front, and that reminded me of the State of Rest situation last year. So the combination of the faster ground, the fact that he managed to get beaten this last year, I'm not saying that he can't win at all, like as in he's a brilliant horse. I just think that you'll see Bay Bridge at his very best when he's got cut in the ground, and he doesn't have that here. He could be still good enough to win this, but again, straight on to my next mentioning will be Luxembourg. He has to overcome the form of Luxembourg. Luxembourg, for me, is what you call a chalk or cheese horse. He is an all or nothing. He has thrown in some absolute wobblers and very poor races, and he's been an absolute monster at times. It doesn't really make sense. I thought, to be honest, last season he had one good run, and that was the Irish Champion Stakes. The rest of the year he was very, very average, considering he was touted as one of the best. And that includes obviously finishing third in the 2000 Guineas. But he came back and he proved that to me. I thought, yeah, that was very average when he finished fifth of seven on return. But then and you listen to the comments of people who were in the paddock that day, and they said he was fat, he was awful, and they thought he wouldn't even win another race after that race. And then next time out, he comes back and he just repeats the feat again. He comes back in the Tattersalls Gold Cup, same horses he played against in the Irish Champion Stakes last year in Verdani, and he just an absolute monstrous performance again, and he was just again from the front, round the inside, and just pulled out more. I think he's such an impossible horse to put a number on. I think he needs to be ridden a certain way, which is prominent, or from the front. And he's a horse that just like he has stamina and abundance when it comes down the end. He's not an arc horse. He was obviously beaten 7 lengths in the arc. And I don't think he's too bothered. I don't think he wants the soft ground that the others do. I think he's more than happy on a good surface. You look through his form, and like his form he's got on good ground, first, third in the 2000 Guineas. All his average forms come on soft or very soft. So he likes this sort of ground. So everyone's probably thinking, yeah, but you said you were picking negatives. My negative with Luxembourg, much like Paddington and Beautiful, whatever it was in the Duke of Cambridge, is the pace bias again. We're going back to that same weekend at the Curragh where it paid to be on the pace. Ryan Moore sat there on that rail, and it was a bit like the whole situation with Little Big Bear at Haydock. It was, you want the rail, come get it from me. I'm having this, and I'm staying at the front. If a horse come to him, he just went a little bit further, or he just happily just plodded along with him. And it was a perfect ride from the front to beat Bay Bridge. Obviously, Verdani was well beaten out the back, and that showed how hard it was to come from the rear. In the fact that Verdani, we know, is a good horse. Maybe he's past it at the moment, or maybe I think he had issues actually. I think he bled after the race. But regardless, Verdani could not make any ground, not a bit of ground. Could not make any ground, and the only reason Bay Bridge could make ground was because Richard Kingscott was very aware to the pace bias and kept. It was actually a very good ride in defeat. I mean, you'd still be fuming if you would back Bay Bridge because you want to win, but in the fact that he would not let Ryan Moore get too far ahead. And so Bay Bridge sat in behind, and Bay Bridge is quite a keen horse. So even with getting a full lead at decent speed, he still couldn't make that gains. So Luxembourg, for me, I'd want to see it again without that pace bias, the draw bias. Over to Adayar. So Adayar is interesting here, and arguably for me, I think it's got the best form, but not the best recent form. Like Adayar was phenomenal in his early years. Last year was quite a quiet campaign. Monster performance at Doncaster. I say monster performance at Doncaster, a big performance at Doncaster. It was only a 3-runner race, but it brought him on enough to then go and take on Bay Bridge. I think they had a very tough interrupted campaign last year. The thing is, he came to beat Bay Bridge here at Ascot in the Champion Stakes, and he couldn't get past. Bay Bridge had first run, but he couldn't get past. The difference was that was soft ground. Adayar likes soft ground, but as I've said before, I think Bay Bridge is a couple of pounds better on soft ground. And the other thing when I go to this is, I think, this is obviously my personal opinion, is I think Adayar is like a Group 1 12 furlong horse. So you look back through his form, and like obviously he was brilliant in the Arc when finishing third, but you look through his form, and obviously he won the Epsom Derby. Then he went to win the King George here over 12 furlongs, and that was on good firm ground, so arguably best performance on good firm ground. So the ground's not going to be of any issue. But you look at all his, if I signal out his 10 furlong form, so his 12 furlong form was first in the Derby, first in here at Ascot in the King George, and then fourth in an Arc on heavy ground, which is, obviously that's a brilliant run anyway. But then when you go down to 10 furlongs, he was second to Alan Kerr, fifth to Seal Away on the Champions Day in 2021. He won a Group 2 with 3 runners in it. And then he finished obviously second to Bay Bridge. and he did beat Amnat in Group 3. So what I'm saying is obviously the horse is maturing, so maybe I'm wrong. And obviously he's proven on fast ground. I think just the concern is I just think he's a 12 furlong horse. I'm not saying he's not a good 10 furlong horse, but he was beaten over 10 furlongs. And when you heard the main alarm bell for me was when Charlie Appleby turned around and said it would be good to get a Group 1 on his CV at 10 furlongs. So they're trying to do that, as in they're trying to make him that horse to get him there. Could he be? Of course he could. He could well be, and he's got brilliant form. He's only a year older than these, and he's won a Derby and stuff like that. He is a brilliant horse, and this could well be his day. He's got Ascot form, which I think is very important, whereas obviously Luxembourg doesn't. But the problem is he's priced accordingly now. Like he was like 4-1 not long ago, and drifting out to like 5-1, 11-2 when Desert Crown money was coming, and now he's sat there at 9-4. This is my problem. My problem isn't the fact with the horses. I could make a case for any of these horses. My problem is the fact that all of the horses are too short for their current prices. So something will give, and these horses' prices will move. One will end up, say, 7-4, 2-1. Another one will end up 5-2. One will be 4-1. Another one will be 6-1. And that's when you can work out. But currently at the market, you've got Luxembourg and Adyar at 9-4, and Bay Bridge and My Prospero 4-1. My Prospero was 8-1, regardless when Desert Crown was in or out. And then they've just chopped him in half just to suit the rest of the field, and he's now 4-1. So My Prospero is interesting. He got the little haggis glint, the little wink wink the other day when he was asked about him. It's not normally William Haggis, it's more Maureen who gives these little glinks. Obviously third behind Caribus last year in St James's Palace, which was a good run, but didn't mark me out as obviously Maljoon was the one of the yard to take for that race rather than him. Then went to St Cloud, 1/10, and again featured, long and behold, behind Bay Bridge. So technically, if you wanted to run this and say, oh, well, surely British Champion Stakes, if you knew nothing about horse racing and just looked at the form, well, Bay Bridge finished in front of Adyar and My Prospero in Champion Stakes. Surely Bay Bridge just wins. Maybe that's the case. But that is a race worth watching if you haven't watched it back for the form side of things. But it was good to soft on the day, but it looked a lot softer. Like as in Baid obviously got beat that day in that race, and he just wheel span on the ground. So My Prospero, interesting they dropped him back to the Lockinge. That said to me that it looked like they were just doing a race for to get a bit of fitness into him, and he comes here with every chance again. I genuinely, this is why I haven't had a bet on this race anymore, because obviously the Desert Crown situation. I had one bet at Antipost 6-1 and one bet at 11-2 non-runner no bet. Obviously I got the money back for non-runner no bet, but you're not getting your Antipost back. But it was worth the risk because I just So anyway, obviously I've waffled on. I've given a bit of an opinion on all of those, and it's price. It's price. If you're looking at one of those like Bay Bridge, I just don't want to back on the ground. If he wins, I'd accept that. I don't want to back him on faster ground unless the rain comes. So then you're looking at the others. Luxembourg, I could now probably narrow down due to the pace bias. He could do it again, and he could get that exact same state of rest run, which is why I don't want to write him off. I just think he's too short at 9-4 currently. Adyar's got great form, and I like the fact he's got the Ascot form, and My Prospero is interesting. So where does that leave you? Absolutely no idea. So, but hopefully that gives you some sort of guide of where you may look to try and find the winner in that race. I will put all my selections obviously up this evening, probably on Twitter, or probably this evening. I won't be writing a big blog, but I'll put my selection up, and if I do decide to back one on there, I might do a match bet, say like a 4-1, say like it was, I don't know, My Prospero to beat Bay Bridge at even money or something like that. So I'll look for an angle to have some sort of bet in there. Right then, on to the Hunt Cup, and long and behold, this is obviously a massive runner race, 32 horses, but actually it's been very kind to me the last 2 years. The last 2 years I've actually had the winner on both, and last year I only picked 2 horses and still had the winner, and one of them I picked after the original, so the main one was the winner. Last year obviously was Dark Shift, and the year before was, I can't remember, the Godolphin horse. It was a big price. This year I think I've got it down to 4 so far. Could just back 4. I'll probably back them. I know obviously you should back horses each way, especially like with 8 places or whatever, but a lot of my horses, they either win or they do nothing. So, and the difference is something like this is the difference in your jockey. Like if you've got a jockey that's, say, one that will always ride their mount out every time, compared to, say, the likes of a Frankie Dettori, who may not see that the same way. The difference between him literally just deciding I'm not going to ride out the last half a furlong, that could be the difference between you going from, say, 4th in the places to about 10th. They're always bunched towards the end, and that sort of thing frustrates me. It's fine if you get someone like, if they're going for the title, for the Ascot Jockeys title, like the likes of a Buick, Dettori, all of those, then they need the seconds, thirds, fourths, and stuff like that. But if that moment's not there, or the jockey's not that bothered, or they're tired, then you can often find yourself going from 4th, or say you playing first each way 8, you could go from 7th to about 13th in one stride. So that's why it frustrates me, and I just normally just go for the glory and just go for the win. So I'll go through my 4, and then the one horse which, if it gets to a bigger price, I'd expect to back. So my 4 straight up, and this one has been on my list for a long time now, and this has been my main one that I think is Astro King. Astro King was 2nd in the race 2 years ago and 4th in the race last year, both for Sir Michael Stout. And last year he was, in my opinion, he had every chance. There's no excuse to why he couldn't get there. The year before, he's beaten by a freak, a Group 1 horse in Godolphin. But last year he had every chance, and there was little to say that he should have won. However, the difference is, after that, he ran 2 no races. So 6th of the 6th and 20th of the 20th, got dropped in the handicapper, moved from Michael Stout over to Daniel and Claire Kubler. So I thought at the time, okay, well, they're not going to be able to improve a horse that Michael Stout couldn't improve. However, long and behold, first run out, you get a career best 108. So what I mean by that is that they have improved the horse straight away on their first run. And they improved the horse whilst giving the horse a very sneaky ride. It wasn't given a hard time. It was Richard Kingscott in the saddle. He found as much trouble as possible at York. And you could tell that they weren't interested. They just wanted to check the horse was healthy, get the horse some fitness, and check they had a potential with the horse. And they come here, obviously off a career best, so 108, which is a pound higher than what he ran last year. The difference is they come here £3 lower. So Kingscott takes the ride again. Me personally, I was a bit disappointed that Kingscott was in, because I mean, why would you not get, like, say, I don't know, Billy Loughnane or someone like that, and get £3 off, £5 off? I mean, if you get a good claimer in this, you would be absolutely laughing. But then again, yeah, there's not many claimers in this. A lot of them are riding off their level weight, so maybe it's not so. Second time for trainer, and I just think Astro King's got standout chance. Around about the 12 to 1 mark so far. So he's first on the list. Drawn 12. High draws is mainly what you want. Low draws you definitely don't want. So he's drawn 12, so he's mid-pack. He can move across, but high draws is the best, in my opinion, for this. Next up is horse that interlinks with him, and that's Intelligent. Intelligent of James Chappell Hyam, ridden by James Doyle. And I will go to the exact same race. I don't know why I came off it. And that is for the same form lines, in the fact that he was a 40 to 1 shot in behind when finishing second last year in this race, the Royal Hunt Cup. Finished ahead of Astro King and has been dropped £1. So obviously Astro King's dropped £3. He's only dropped £1. So Astro King's £2 better off of Intelligent, but Intelligent only had Intelligent finished half a length second and was staying on at the line. So I thought that was obviously, I'm not going to say that's an eye catcher, because obviously it was a year ago, but it was quite a big run for this. You look at the 2 runs this year, and there's no hidden secrets with them. Stuck at the back, pushed along. Thanks for your efforts. Try and drop me a few pounds, because it went up to 109 and now comes all the way back down to 104. So this is clearly the target. Drawn in 31. And I think that is what you call a plum area for the draws, right up in that corner. Unless we find out after today that there's a massive draw bias to the other side, but I think high numbers will be where you want to be. Okay, so on to number 3. Number 3, drawn 22, and that is Ryan Moore and Ralph Beckett on Sonny Lissom. So why does this horse stand out? This horse stands out because last year ran in some good races, some group stakes races, high level of form, but never really cut it. Didn't cut it. Ran good RPRs. Similar again, 107, so similar to the 108s mentioned earlier. But the things that stand out when cutting to the chase is switch from Charles Hills to Ralph Beckett. Went for a run out, so I watched that run. Travelled very strongly, but wasn't given a hard time, just like the going theme with all these handicappers. Ryan Moore takes the ride, and first time blinkers applied on second time out for the trainer. Drawn in 22, so the right part of the track. It's currently sat around 18 to 1. Just looked a no-brainer for me. Ryan Moore, anything Ryan Moore rides is obviously going to be respected anyway, but it just looked one for the shortlist. And then my final one is Blue for You. So Blue for You I've taken from a different angle. One is the fact that Danny Tudhope and David O'Meara, between the two of them, jockey and trainer combination, they run out their skins at Ascot all week. They are next level, as in their horses could run £10 higher than they would anywhere else. But whilst Astro King was obviously doing his little sneaky last time out, Blue for You was in that race. He wasn't so sneaky, but the difference was he gave himself so much to do at the start that he didn't need to be sneaky. In fact, he went from last to fifth in like the final few furlongs. He just came tearing down the outside, and then blew up. But like he was never going to make that ground. Like there was 20 horses in the race, and he was drawn widest, so he was on in 20. But he made very eye-catching headway, and his sectional times, he had the fastest sectionals in for a few of the furlongs in that race. And he just reminded me of like the standard Lord Glitters, like peeling down the outside, Danny Tudhope giving it the brag and going for it. He's coming here off 101. So when you look back through, his last winning mark was he's 1 off 96. So he is high technically, but would he have not gone close last time out? I don't think. I think if he was ridden with a better draw and more prominent, I think he would have gone close in that race. So yeah, okay, maybe he's slightly higher. He's one a little less, like not as warm on, but he has to make the shortlist. And then the final one, I'm not going to elaborate. I'm not even going to go into the details. Is Perotto. Perotto, every man and his dog. As soon as you pick up a column, if you read or listen to anything, everyone knows. Like, I'll go back to his last winning mark. So he moved from Marcus Tregonin to Roger Varian, which is a trainer upgrade, especially for handicaps here at Royal Ascot. His last winning mark was when he won at Ascot, winning the Britannia off a mark of 99. So he's gone all the way up to marks of 110, and been acquitting himself well enough, and ran in group races behind horses like Chindit, and now he's come all the way back down to a mark of 96. So he is back £3 lower than when he's won here at Ascot before in a race very similar. So he could not be any more obvious. He was given a nice little prep when he finished 7th on first run for Roger Varian, and he has to go close. But the problem is at the moment he's priced accordingly. He's 7 to 1. If you get 9 to 1, and say you were backing a couple of horses each way and made a win, he'd be a win only bet for me. And the other thing is he's got the plum draw. So like people who like the tri-casts and forecasts, I know obviously I don't normally do these, but let me just give you where I've been saying about the high draw. I've got a combination of not only the high draw, but also I've got my horse in the right places. So 31, drawn 31 is Intelligent, 30 is Perotto, 26 is Blue for You, and then 22 is Sunny Listen. So obviously I have got Astro King over the other side, but that's 4 horses all drawn right over that side of the track. Like I could easily see them being in. I'll do like random, silly, stupid forecasts and tri-casts. But anyway, in summary, because I've talked too long about this, in summary, Astro King has been on the list for a long time, and I think with that, Intelligent has to be top of the list. So those two would be top of my list. And then the other two that I do like, Sunny Listen. So those 3 are a definite. Blue for You, I like. Just a little bit lukewarm on the numbers, but I will no doubt back him. Especially as all of these horses are like 12 to 1. I think they're 12 to 1 or 14 to 1 or bigger. So those 4, and then the final one was obviously Perotto. But Perotto, I don't want to back a 7 to 1 shot in a 32 runner race. Onto the Queen's Vase. I'm not going to go into this race at all. I don't know if I'll even have a bet in it yet. I'll wait and see. If I do, it'll be on Twitter. It looks very trappy. Gregory is a fair favourite, but 7 to 4 is giving nothing away. Chesapeake is interesting from Simon Ned Crisford. The fact that Godolphin have picked that horse up after beating Land Legend. I really liked both the second and third that day, Land Legend and Rathgar. I thought they were very well handicapped horses. So he's only gone up £5, and he'd probably be top of my list. Strange that James Doyle's riding there. Oh, because obviously it's a Crisford horse. It's not suddenly turned into a Godolphin horse. And also the form behind Military Order. So, I say I'm not going to have a bet, and suddenly I'm talking myself into backing Chesapeake straight away because I liked all of those things I mentioned. But I haven't looked at draws, stats, anything. So it's not a recommended bet currently. But you get the picture that I probably will back that horse. Right then, on to the final race of the day. And much like the starting race of the day, it's a 2-year-old race. Brilliant race. But how many horses have we got here? We have got 26 horses. So we've got 26 horses, 2-year-olds, where most of them have had 2 runs. So do you want to go steaming into this? No. Does that mean if you're at Royal Ascot, you've had 10 beers and you've had a great day or a bad day that you're not going to? No, it doesn't. So we're going to cover it anyway. My opinion, I really like Barnwell Boy. This is another one I put up at 5-1 anti-post. Just really like the debut. Interesting they're dropping back down 6 furlongs to 5. I've seen a few people comment saying, does he really want to go back to 5? And the answer maybe he doesn't. But are they dropping back to 5 to try and pick up an easier race, or is it the fact that they just think this horse is perfectly suited to 5 as well? I mean, he made all, so it's hard to say that he wouldn't be suited by this trip. And he was very impressive. Impressive on the clock, the sectionals. Packard, who finished second to him, has won since. So I just think he's got plenty in his favour, but obviously the market tells you that. I think he'll probably be about 7-2, 4-1 tomorrow once the market's settled. But yeah, I've backed him at 5-1. The next one I do really like, and I watched Alice Haynes talking about the other day, is one of her favourites for this week. Obviously, an up and coming trainer, or maybe underrated trainer, and that's Maximum Impact. Maximum Impact was sent off even money at Ascot, and the good thing about that was it wasn't an easy race. So there were good horses in there, in the fact that Action Point and the Line were both quite well thought of, but it was the fact that the horse really had to work, as in was racing second, but then once pushed along, made quite a heavy weather of it before getting up on the line. And a lot of people normally think because they don't win like the sexy like Caravaggio on the bridle style, they often downplay those sort of horses. But it means that then when you do get push comes to shove, because some of these horses won't even come off the bridle yet, when the push comes to shove, then this horse may well find more than others, because he's already used to it, used those muscles before. So not to say that will definitely be my selection. And Johannes Brahms of obviously Ryan Moore and Aidan O'Brien, that's an interesting runner. I like the Tourist, who Johannes Brahms beat. Tourist was obviously also beaten by River Tiber, who runs today. So that could be interesting cross-link if River Tiber hacked up. But the other one that I do like at a much bigger price, and I thought maybe we'll go to the Norfolk, is World of Darcy. So World of Darcy was impressive at Pontefract when winning. But the main run that I'm looking at was, and I actually backed him in this race along with Elite Status, was in the National Stakes at Sandown. And that was, he finished in behind Elite Status, who all of us know looks an absolute monster for the Norfolk. They've had to split them up. Obviously, they want to try and win 2 races. So World of Darcy comes here and is a massive price. I mean, 20-1. So put it this way, if World of Darcy was to go close here, or to win here, or to do anything like really like well, then Elite Status price is going to be absolutely madness for the Norfolk. Because yeah, okay, it was absolutely, because this horse was thumped 5 lengths by Elite Status, but on paper the race looked good all round. So like there was horses like Hackman, Blue Storm, On Point. There was horses that had all won previously, so it looked like a good race on paper. So unless they all just fell apart and this horse had got like a buy through, this horse is underrated currently in this market, in my opinion, because you can make a case for many of these. So horse I've backed, Barnwell Boy at 5-1. Horse I will back in a minute once I get off here is World of Darcy. I'll take I think it's about 20-1. Might even be bigger than that. World of Darcy for Carl Burke. And then top of my list, I'll probably back one of the other two, would be the Maximum Impact or Johannes Brahms. But I won't be doing that until I see what happens today, because I think it's very hard. Like if River Tiber bolts up, then that form with Johannes Brahms and the Tourist suddenly looks a lot better. Otherwise, Maximum Impact's got course form, stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot you don't want to put all your eggs in your basket straight away. Right then, so Royal Ascot Day 2 summary. The Queen Mary, so 230, beautiful diamond, 5-1 win. And I've backed Midnight Affair each way. The Kensington Palace, the 305. I've not looked at enough yet, but Yawan there will be one of my bets for the reasons mentioned. Currently priced between 8 and 9-1. The Duke of Cambridge, 340. Jumbly, win bet. Obviously backed anti-post, but you still get 9-4, 5-2. I think that's fair. And Grand Dame, you can get that each way, 9-1. You can back it to win if you want, but at the moment you've got 8 runners in the race. And if, say, a Jumbly or a Prosperous Voyage doesn't fire, then that means you've got 3 places to play for. So I think you've got plenty of room for that. That's why it's a win and an each way bet. Prince of Wales Stakes is a muddle at the moment. Obviously, I've given my reasoning for many on there. Royal Hunt Cup shortlist is Astro King, Intelligent, Sunny Listen, Blue for You, and Perotto in that order. Perotto obviously will be left off the list if still sat around 7-1. If it wins, I'll just be one of those where, or I might have a tiny save on it because I don't want to lose on the race if that horse wins. Like, so say you were betting, obviously this isn't what I'm going to bet, but say you bet, I don't know, £1 on each of your selections to win. So those four you have £4 on. Then obviously if you can get Perotto at 8-1, you can have 50p on that on Perotto, and if he wins, that'll give you your £4.50 back. And that's the sort of way I play it. And again, as I said, I explained the reason to why I'm not going to be going each way in this race. But that's just my personal, I know by the book and the correct way to play when you're getting 8 runners, 30 horses, and some people make all their profit by doing each way selections, but it's just not what I do. 5.35 Queen's Bars. Obviously Chesapeake is interesting and will probably get a few of my pennies around the 8-1 mark, but I haven't looked at the race properly yet. And then finally 6.10 the Windsor Castle. Barnwell Boy, I backed at 5-1, currently get around 3-4-1. Seems fair, it's not one you want to be steaming in at, but one I do like each way is World of Darcy at 20-1 plus, drawn in 26, Danny Tudholme and Carl Burke. And then of the other two that I'll look to back, so if I look to have another win bet, will be between Johannes Brahms and Maximum Impact. So yeah, that's my shortlist for Wednesday. Obviously not very short at all. I know obviously people will say that you shouldn't have a bet in every race at Royal Ascot, and I do agree with that. But at the same time, even if you're watching, if people want to have a bet in every race, they can have a bet in every race. At the end of the day, there's a difference between having a bet in every race and having a lot of money on every race and having a very small bet. Some people would rather just have tiny little bets across 7 races, and that's what they want to do. So that's why I'm trying to give as much information as possible. So I hope you all have a brilliant Royal Ascot day 1 and day 2, and I will record day 3 potentially tonight or tomorrow, and it will be uploaded onto YouTube straight away. So for those that have already subscribed, perfect, you'll get it straight away. And if you like the video, that's much appreciated for the time I take, and any comments or any bets or any naps you've got for the week, throw them on here. Thank you and goodbye.